Okay, on to chapter 16. This chapter we're going to talk about symbols and puzzles and Machaut and the medieval mind. So during this time, humans were fascinated with riddles and puzzles. And in the Western tradition, music was linked with mathematics and geometry. So our first example here is in ancient Greece with Pythagoras, who had musical experiments. Then we have, during the medieval times, Quadrivium, who used music, mathematics, geometry, astronomy, and consider these all essential education. Medieval minstrels and court musicians. Popular repertoire of songs and dances reflected the aspects of medieval life, the daily life. Now, minstrels, these were wandering and versatile entertainers, musicians who were on the fringe of society. So they moved from court to court, not really having a permanent place to stay, but their livelihood was pleasing the members of the court and entertaining them. Next, we have troubadours and trouvères. Now, these were men from the south of France, the troubadours, and the trouvères, northern France, and they were finders and inventors. French poet musicians, aristocratic court musicians, they flourished in various courts throughout Europe. Their poems were always about unrequited love and idealized love, chivalry and laments, political and moral ditties, and also the chronicles of the Crusades. Now, one little cool fact about these singers, these men, they're always wooing women. So with their love songs and unrequited love, I always thought of them as like little Romeos moving all around France. They also developed polyphony, which carried over into secular music. Now here we have two pictures. The first is a Turkish military called Janissary of their band, and they were mounted players of trumpets, cymbals, and drums. And this is a miniature from Webe's Imperial Festival book. Now, this manuscript illumination on the right is the crusading Christians taking Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade. During this time, the Europeans adopted the Arabic numeral system because before they had the Roman numeral system. And there's a lot of exchange and adoption of Eastern instruments. So like I said before in class, we have the drums, the cymbals, the triangles, instruments like that, even the trumpets. And during this time, there was a lot of adoption of that. All right, next we have Machaut and the French Ars Nova. Now, the Ars Nova is a new musical style, and this was in the early 1300s in France. Then it moved to Italy. Developments in rhythm, meter, harmony, and counterpoint are part of this style. And remember, counterpoint is note against note, or one line playing against another line independently. Now, the interest is in the regularity and complexity of musical patterns. And this is more refined and complex than the Ars Antiqua, which means old art. And this style of music consisted of secular themes, so non-religious themes. Here on this little picture here, we have a polyphonic chanson, which is performed with the voices and the lute in this miniature, representing the Garden of Love from a Flemish manuscript of Les Romans de la Rose. This is around circa 1500. Now, Guillaume de Machaut, he was around from 1300 to 1377. He was the foremost composer of Ars Nova, and he had a far-reaching influence. He also had a double career as a cleric and courtier, and he worked at various French courts. And he self-consciously collected his works for posterity, and he was like the first composer to do that. Now, he composed sacred and secular compositions, and he favored the chansons, which were French courtly love poems. He also wrote in other poetic forms like the rondo, ballade, and virelai. Now, with his style of music, there's a new freedom of rhythms, syncopations, interplay of duple and triple meters. So, with this interplay, syncopations means that we're having an emphasis on the offbeat. So if this is our downbeat, dun, 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 da, 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 da. So that accent that pops off not on the downbeat really sticks out in the texture. And there's an interplay between the duple meter, 1, 2, 1, 2, and the triple meter, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So there's a mixture of those two meters. And Machaut spent his final years as a priest and canon in the Cathedral of Reims. And here is a picture or a painting of Machaut. And this last slide here is the octagonal maze in the marble floor of the Cathedral of Amiens in France. This was in 1288. And this is similar to the one Machaut knew in Reims, which was now destroyed. Now, I spent a little time looking at this maze, and it does not seem possible. There is no way to get in or out, but it's a really cool architectural element. All right, so in listening guide 4 for Machaut, we have Ma fin est mon commencement. My end is my beginning. And this is in the mid-14th century, so mid-1300s. And this piece is a 3-voice a cappella chanson. Now we have non-imitative polyphony, so meaning that we're having multiple lines going, in this case 3 lines, and the music is not imitating itself. We have duple meter, so 1, 2, 1, 2, with syncopated rhythms, 1, 2, da, 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 or some kind of melody like that, but we're having the accent in between beats 1 and 2. And then we also have long melismas. You guys remember melismas? Where we're having many, many, many notes on one syllable. And we have hollow cadences. And the cadences are those resting places at the ends of these phrases. And they're hollow, meaning that they don't feel quite settled, and it's a very light texture. And in this case, it might be the use of using an octave, where they're 8 notes apart, or even a perfect fifth, 5 notes apart. And the text is of a puzzle. The rondo is by Machaut, and the text is enigmatic and uses palindromes. So with this text, it challenged the listener to pay attention and understand what's going on. And Machaut also used religious connotations in the text as well. So, not only was the music very beautiful and, very beautiful and, what's the right word? Challenging to the ear, but it's also the text, there's another layer to it with the text. And, if you weren't really paying attention, you might not get the context. So again, fitting in with the puzzles that these medieval composers and thinkers were always interjecting into their daily life. Now with this piece, Machaut alternates between the A and B sections, and that is kind of the general style of the rondo, where you have your A theme, and that is presented, and then you have your B theme, and then that's presented, and then we go back to the A theme. So it's just alternating between A and B. And the structure is palindromic. So the B section retrograde is the retrograde of the A section. So that means that the B section is the backwards version of what happens in A. The two upper parts, or upper voices, they trade part at the midpoint. So if one singer is singing up here and the other singer is singing down here, when you get to the midway point of that section, they swap. So then we have the lower voice singing the higher melody and the higher voice singing the lower melody of something like that. And the bottom voice retrogrades at midpoint. So the bottom voice is singing to a certain point, and at the midway, then it sings in reverse. And here is the breakdown that we see in the study guide for this piece. And that's it for chapter 16.